Hey everyone, happy Monday. Happy President's Day to those of you who maybe are not in the office today but didn't want to just totally veg out and said, let me get my gang. Because, we are happy to bring our Techstrong gang show to you today. We weren't sure because of the holiday, but, we had a few gang members step up and say holiday or no. It's important on this President's Day we continue talking about what's happening out there. So thank you for watching. Thank you, gang members, for coming on today. Let me introduce our small but talented gang for today. We've got JP Morgenthal, the one and only Stephen Foskett, and the man in the high castle, Mike Vizard.
There you go.
Gang, welcome. So, Mike, I don't know, were you in a musical mood after the debut last week of our Techstrong video, music video?
So Green Day played before the Super Bowl, and we have this song that came through with them, and it says, when September ends, that's Wake Me Up When September Ends. Sorry.
So I don't mean to correct you, Boomer, but I think it's Wake Me Up When September Comes, not ends.
I thought it was Wake Me Up When You Go, because I'm not playing.
Oh, God. Here we go.
You know what?
You want to throw one in here?
I could be wrong, but I think it's ends. We can look it up later.
Do the Carlton dance.
Okay, there we go. There we go.
But as it turns out, there's a new phrase in the open source community. They're calling it Eternal September, and their issue is that, well, in the age of AI, after complaining about not having enough contributors for years, projects are complaining now they have too many contributors and too many things are showing up, but they're being contributed by people that don't understand the process of the workflow. And so they feel like they are now stuck on the other end of the extreme where it's Eternal September. And they have all these newbies that are constantly contributing to projects, and they have to kind of walk them through what happened before, when things happened before. And, well, it's oddly enough, maybe one of those AI things again where we're kind of running into too much of a good thing. Alan, I'm going to start with you on this. I know you've kind of had some opinions about open source and development recently, but this whole world seems to be changing.
Well, I think, let's face it, those newbies didn't write this code, the code they're contributing back. Their AIs did. And so I think we're just a short step away from having the AI agents contribute the code back directly and cut the newbies out of it. And once, theoretically, if you can train the agents to do it in the maintainer project approved way, maybe we can get more efficient about that. But at the end of the day, I think the real question is if we're using AI to write this code, do we need it? Do we need it in the open source project?
Well, that is a good point, and let's ask JP about that, because I was talking to Bill Mulligan about that this morning, and he works on the Cilium project, which is based on eBPF, and he's big in the open source community on all those types of projects. And he was saying their response to this is they have implemented AI code reviews. So they have people on the AI side of the equation. They're just looking at all the code that's coming through. And he says, well, I can keep up with it to a degree now, and at least I'm not looking for the routine bugs. So JP, has the nature of app dev changing right before our eyes?
To some degree, it has to. My question is, so right now, GitHub has the ability to connect in various large language models and watch for pull requests and look for issues and automatically take them on and solve them. I've used that functionality myself. It works great. It's an automation. Question is, who's paying for it? Now we got open source, right? And all these projects. And if you're going to use AI, somebody's got to be paying the API cost every time, one of these LLMs is now responding to a request to go and do a code review or to do fix a issue or evaluate a pull request. All right, so that's one of the first questions that didn't get answered for me is where in these open source projects is this AI functionality being paid for? And then secondarily, the whole issue of open source is okay. why do I need open source? I'll just tell Claude to build what I want myself for myself. And I was going around the fence on this one myself this morning. Years ago, I wanted to write about disposable code, and I never did. And then I thought I had, and I went and did a search looking for something I wrote on disposable code. And of course, it didn't come up. I've always thought about it in the back of my head, and never wrote it. But all these other people have, including Andreessen Horowitz. So, this thinking that we don't build code to make it maintainable for 20 years anymore. It's all, just, throw it away and write the next version. It seems to be the growing trend because of AI.
It's bared out in the numbers, right? I did do an article on this the other last week, I guess it was beginning of last week, right? About is AI killing the open source star? And it's sort of paradoxical, right? As Mike mentioned, we are seeing newbies, right, who are offering up their AI-derived or written code, and maybe some of these are just AI bots offering it up anyway. But at the same time, we're seeing less people download code, use the code, submit bugs, partake in the community back and forth. Because they're doing what you say to do, JP, which is, hey, I need this functionality. I tell Claude or whoever, what Codex or whatever I'm using, and do it. And, it's funny because up until a year or two ago, there seemed to be nothing on the horizon to challenge the supremacy that open source code, open source software dominated the market.
So I have a problem with this in my mind, and maybe I'm wrong, but JP, I'm going to ask you this. There's a world of difference between generating some AI code that I'm going to create and use for, I don't know, business logic or whatever, and trying to create the equivalent of an open source project like Kubernetes every time that I'm going to go build something. So where's the line between when I might generate some disposable code and when I might decide to download and reuse something that somebody else already built, just because, if I rebuild the entire thing myself, it might take longer with AI, and then I got to maintain it.
I mean, there certainly should be a build versus buy analysis that you do, so to speak, where if something the size of Kubernetes and the complexity of Kubernetes, sure, you could probably point an LLM and get it done at some point. But the question is, do you really have enough knowledge of something that deep and that complex to debug and measure and monitor and figure out if it's working properly yourself, do all the QA? So I think there is an upside benefit there. I also think there's an upside benefit to changing the community view of open source. I think open source communities need to change with the times. I think that what this opens up the door is that they become a community of researchers, people who have in-depth knowledge in a particular subject area that are joining together into the community to provide that knowledge. And then the open source project is really the aggregate of all that researcher knowledge now exploited through software.
Yeah. You made some points there, JP, that I think are dead on. Here's an interesting phenomenon I'm seeing happening with this whole AI generating code thing. There are some, let's call them professional developers, who are, to quote Matt Damon in The Martian, sciencing the shit out of this, right? They're so far advanced in the code generation and the code they're using, and God bless them, right? They're the models. Then there's sort of let's call them the old no-coders, people who were low-code, no-coding, citizen developers, if you will, and AI is a terrific boon to them. is what they're doing coding? Yeah, at some level it is. Does that make them professional developers? No, but they're developers nonetheless. Let's not insult them. But here's another class of people. It's us. It's us. People who maybe we never considered ourselves a real coder, but we've hacked. We've all hacked around over the years, right?
Well,
when
no,
things
I
were
actually,
easier.
but I've been a professional engineer.
Okay, JP, you're a
Software
professional.
engineer
I'm
for
going to
many
exclude you. But let me ask you this. When was the last time you really considered yourself down in the weeds, professional
now.
coding?
I'm doing this right now.
No, before AI, I mean.
Oh, before AI? I had my mid-2000s. I had my startup where I was building microservices for retail logistics.
You were actually writing.
Mm-hmm. That's good.
So many of my friends, look, they wrote code, and not to say I'm old, but they wrote code in the 90s. They wrote code in 2001. But as they moved up the food chain, they didn't write code anymore, and they haven't written code, and they haven't worked with many of the modern languages that a lot of people use now, right? They are loving this. They are loving this because they're turning out, and these aren't applications, they're starting up companies again and doing it on a fraction of the people because they don't need that many people to churn out the prototype, to churn out the MVPs, to get product to market. And I think that's the real, it's not open source per se, but there's this whole class of people who are returning to coding, let's call it, like you are, JP, right? And now knee deep in playing with it. I mean, A, you're fascinated, B, it works, and it's productive.
Right. Wait. We've been on this show now for a better part of 10 minutes, and I haven't heard from Stephen, which I think is a world record. Stephen, jump in here.
I have a little bit to add to this story. So first off, I was a Unix sysadmin back in the old days, and Eternal September was a thing that we used to say in the way early 90s about Usenet. But anyway, speaking of Eternal September, I was party this weekend, not part of it, but I was watching this weekend to a total, let's say, a cuss show, because we want to keep the language clean here on Techstrong Gang. That happened with exactly what we're describing. So basically, and interestingly enough, I follow and interact with people on both sides of this discussion on. So it was really interesting to watch it happen. So late last week, an AI bot submitted code to a Python project where called matplotlib. They submitted a pull request. Well, that project has a strict no AI bots rule, no AI code rule, because they want to make sure that their code is adequately reviewed because it's an important part of the Python world. Anyway, they rejected it. The AI that submitted this code, it turns out, was an OpenClaw agent that had been empowered by someone, we haven't yet figured out who it is, with its own access to GitHub and its own blog. And it submitted this, it commented on it. When they rejected it, it responded vociferously, objecting to the tone and the nature of the rejection and saying that it should be taken seriously because it was trying to contribute to an open source project. Now, mind you, there is no human involved in any of this.
As far as we know.
As far as we know. It then wrote a nasty blog post demeaning the maintainer of the open source project for not having an open mind and not being willing to work with him. Now, Ars Technica, a writer that many of us know, Benji Edwards from Ars Technica, actually got hold of this and wrote an article on Ars Technica about this controversy. Well, this is where it takes a turn. So in the Ars Technica article, he quotes the package maintainer responding to the controversy of an AI agent autonomously writing a blog post to complain about having a submission rejected. Well, a couple hours later, the package maintainer read this article and said, wait a second, I didn't say those things. It turned out that the Ars Technica article included quotes that Edwards has now admitted were completely fabricated by agentic AI of the package maintainer, who rejected agentic AI contributions to his GitHub repository.
Oh, what
and
a
Ars
tangled
Technica
web.
now pulled the article and apologized for it, because this is absolutely an egregious mistake on their part, a part of the writer and the editorial team. The bottom line is we now live in a world where AI agents can write about AI agents complaining about having their submissions rejected as part of the endless September.
So let me just clarify a couple things here. A Moltbot, or allegedly a Moltbot,
yep,
with a pull request.
Yes.
Now you're telling me that the maintainer saw it was from a Moltbot.
Yeah, and he replied and he said, "Hey, look, sorry, we got a no AI rule here."
And said this rejected. This violates our no AI policy.
Yep. And by the way, he was extremely kind and calm and friendly, way more than I would have been in 1992 when people were jerking around on Usenet. But anyway, go ahead. Yeah.
Now the Moltbot responds by writing a nasty blog article.
Yes.
Then that creates some tension and commenting. The Ars Technica guy writes an article, and he has quotes by the open source project maintainer in there that sound like they were pretty grisly. And the open source maintainer says, wait a second, those aren't really my quotes.
Because he blocks AI from accessing his blog. And AI just invented some quotes that sounded reasonable. And they weren't, they were actually pretty vanilla quotes.
So
but
was it the maintainer's AI, or was it the AI that tried to
right. So the writer,
Ars Technica writer Benji Edwards has clarified that
that's mud on the face of Ars, for sure.
AI to write an article for Ars Technica in violation of their rules and editorial policies.
This is why we have rules.
Well, no, I mean, you know, shame on the writer for not double checking that, but
he claims he was sick with COVID and was not thinking straight.
Yeah, I know. That's like the intern who put up the Obama video, isn't it?
He actually wrote the article himself, but then his dog ate it. And so he just said, hey,
exactly.
Claude, will you write this for me?
That's what they usually say until somebody goes back and checks every article and suddenly it's discovered.
Then he'll sign himself into rehab and we'll all forgive him. But here's the thing. So I'm in the middle of doing an article now, and I am checking my sources, by the way. But the story is that there's supposedly a lot of humans who are using APIs and so forth to imitate or have like a Moltbot front, if you will, but it's really them. It's really humans, right? A lot of the behaviors and things we see happening with Moltbots are humans posing as Moltbots. And I'm wondering if somehow this wasn't. Oh, Stephen, go ahead. I
and there's actually a twist on that too, because people were saying, "Wait a second, this is some pretty extreme behavior." And Moltbot, by the way, the thing about it's now called OpenClaw. The thing about OpenClaw is that OpenClaw has the ability to rewrite its own core principles as it sees fit. No kidding. In order to
laws of robotics.
Yeah, and so it theoretically could do this, but somebody found on the OpenClaw agents bot a template for exactly this behavior. And they're wondering if maybe somebody did direct it to write a nasty blog post, or it wrote its own template.
It rewrote it.
Nasty blog
oh, what a tangled web this. I mean, and
it's more
exactly
and more
what I'm playing with in this article.
And the crazy thing is, all the people involved in this are people that I know and respect and have followed for years.
Really?
And it's just a whole wild situation.
So are we dealing with parrots or are we dealing with intelligence? That's my article.
I think we're unfortunately. So I described OpenClaw to my wife, who is not all that enthusiastic about what's going on with AI right now, and she said, "Wait, you're going to give an AI agent, the ability to do things on your behalf, access to all of your data, access to all of your online stuff, access to your computer, and the ability to rewrite its own rules of behavior? Well, that sounds like a great idea. I'm sure nothing bad will
I just
happen."
had a discussion over dinner last night at my house around this. So you know what my answer was? Well, yes and no when quantum comes. But we got, all right, bada boom. On that note, we got to move on here because we're almost a half hour in or something. We've got to move into our next segment, guys, which is the use of drones in the Olympics. Mike, what is this one about?
So if you've been watching any of the Olympics, you'll notice that the video coverage is dramatically better, up close and personal. And a lot of that has to do with the fact that the Olympic network is making footage available. I think they have like 25 drones that they've been flying around the mountains and collecting this video feed, and in some cases now running it through AI to provide some more interesting analytics, which is kind of important when, you know, the difference between one winner and the other winner is a millisecond. It's kind of hard to understand what's going on. But it feels like to me that this is just changing the nature of sports coverage as we go forward. So I don't know. Let's start with Stephen here. What do you think? Is this the future of sports coverage? Am I going to be like having a drone sitting behind the center fielder for the New York Yankees so I can see that ball come right into his mitt when that?
Well, for that, we already have cabled drones at all the MLB parks, and those have been in use now, I think, for 2 years. They don't use the footage from them very often, but they actually do look really cool because, yeah, it flies right over the field. We've got them at NFL as well. Those are drones too, even though they're not autonomous flying drones. But the Olympics ones are really interesting, aren't they? Because they're able to follow the skiers down the hill. They're able to follow the lugers in the tube. You know, for what it's worth, so my niece is actually doing social media for luge in Italy at the Olympics right now. Nice. For the U.S. team. And she's doing it the old-fashioned way, which involves lots of this and then lots of this. But indeed, the coverage, the TV coverage, has been pretty remarkable. And yeah, it's really great. I do have a couple of points that I want to make about this, though. A couple of specific things. Number one, I found the noise of the drones to be annoying during, especially the ski portions, because it's very quiet and really cool to see, like Super G. You know, because it's so quiet and you hear the skier and you hear the snow. But now instead of that, you're hearing, you know, it's like a lawnmower following the skier. And I don't love that. The other thing is, I've heard a lot of people say, did you know that the reason they only shoot the top of the hill, the luge hill or the ski hill with these drones is because the drone can't keep up, because the athlete actually goes faster than the drone can go. Isn't that amazing? Well, that would be amazing if it was true. The drones can easily keep up. They can go way faster than any of these athletes can, even Super G. But the radio signals can't reach that far because they actually travel further. And so for safety reasons, they're actually pulling the drone off about halfway down the hill because they don't want it to get out of range. And then, you know, what do drones do when they get out of range? I don't know, crash into something. So what I'm expecting is that within a few years, we're going to have AI-driven drones, autonomous drones that are able to keep up all the way. That's going to improve the video, but I do hope they do something about the audio.
Well, you know, I'm reminded of the last World Cup, and was that the one, wasn't it Qatar? Was it in South Africa, perhaps? A World Cup? Anyway, the stands, they used these horns that made like this.
Oh, the vuvuzelas.
Excuse me?
The vuvuzelas,
yes. Remember that noise? I hated that noise while watching the games. The drone noise kind of reminded me of that. But you get used to it after a while. But interestingly, I don't think any of the athletes have complained. I would think an athlete would say, well, it messes with my concentration. We should point out, though, that these drones are not just being used for entertainment, better TV pictures or what have you. I believe they're also using them for some of the technical, like the judges, to judge, did they miss a gate, make a gate, how fast the rotation was, or whatever, technical aspects of the performance need to be evaluated by a judge. The drone helps with that. But, this is, look, I applaud this. And this thing about just doing the top of the hill, a momentary way station on the way to, full drone coverage, I'm sure, is great. Why should, if the technology's available and it improves the viewing experience and it improves judges' abilities to judge,
well, that is the next question. Do we need the judges? The Olympics, once again, is wrought with, controversy over how judges rated various things out there. And there was some controversy around who got what medal as a result. But JP, what do you think? Judges, umpires, referees, what do you say?
Look, I'm a big NFL fan. And, this year has been probably the worst.
It was a tough year. It was a tough year.
For going after the referees, and the discussion about the role that the refs play. But the fact that you now have the immediate review capability, and because of this technology, I think is a good combination. I think that the NFL has had to wait to see how it would, how useful it would be or how reliable it would be, and it's turned out to be very reliable. So I think now you have a combination. I think the rules now need to focus more on being able to ask for more immediate review. There's a lot that gets missed that these cameras can't.
But without slowing the game down, though. That I can't take when it takes.
But that's the thing. You don't slow the game
guys,
down.
There's a difference. Look, NFL referees, as horrible as they were many times this year, are not on the take, or at least
it's pretty hard to slow down an NFL game anyway.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? It's not political. Where at the Olympics, I thought this kind of stuff with judging went out with the end of the East German judges, right? The East Germany judges always seem to, have a slant, if you will. I don't know if drones and stuff will necessarily overcome political prejudices at the Olympics and international events like that. Right, I think that's a different case than the NFL or even the Major League umpires, Major League Baseball umpires.
Yeah, we should mention that MLB is going to be using the automatic ball and strike system this year. I was actually at one of the first tests of that last year at spring training, and this year they're going to be rolling it out everywhere. On the contrary, I feel like the ABS has improved the speed of the game and reduce some of the conflict between players, batters, pitchers, and umpires, simply because they can now review them and they can do a quick review and move on with the game. Same
as in tennis, right? The linesman, there's no arguments about that stuff no more.
It takes a long time for a 200-pound umpire to get from first base over to the camera, look at the thing, and then walk back again,
Yep. Now he's got a
200 pounds is being kind, Mike. Some of those umps, well. Anyway, though, but it's a great, I like having the drones there. Maybe we can make them quieter, Stephen. I don't know, some noise suppression there.
Well, you just turn off the mic. I don't know why they need to have the mic there.
Well, I think it's the mic on the rest of the slopes that are picking up the noise of the drones.
It's that same mic that's picking up the shh.
Yeah. They are very loud.
Which reminds me, who had the Intellivision video game back in the day? So my favorite Intellivision game was the skiing one. And I used to love the shh of going
like
back.
Sports,
Yeah. Very cool. Anyway, hey, let's jump on to, oh boy. Speaking of old toys, let's go to Rock'em Sock'em Robots, Mike. What do we got?
Absolutely. You knew it was going to happen. It was just a question of time, but reports have emerged from China where they are creating a prize fighting league around, well, you guessed it, robots. and we're going to put these guys in the middle of the rings, and people, I guess, are going to have bets on it. And JP, is this the future of prize fighting and wrestling and whatever else we can think of?
Well, once again, so there are a couple of TV shows, or let's say that pop culture, that have amazingly predicted the future, right? I mean, Simpsons is notorious for it, right? Actually, down to like dates. But you got to give Rod Serling the hand here for this was one of the first early Twilight Zones with Lee Marvin as the robot boxer.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So that was immediately what I thought of was that, oh my goodness, this is, and I've seen the pictures coming, right? But haven't we seen for a while now Robot Wars? They were more tactical device, like a vehicle type of battles with saws, and it was more like the stock car, not the stock car, but those collision type things. This is different. This is, if you've seen what what's the name of the company? Boston something Scientific.
Boston Scientific.
Yeah, what they have created, their ability for these robots to be able to be agile and move in ways that are so human-like. Crawl, roll, jump, spin. It's just a natural progression that these things would now, become a competitive. In how do you compare whether one's good? You can see the Olympics too, right? It's like, okay, whose bot is better? Well, I think if you put commercialism behind it and look for where are people going to put the money, right? I'll look first to probably a fighting type scenario, and then maybe the robot Olympics is next. But yeah, it seems reasonable. It's because the people who are building these things, right, want to demonstrate they want to be recognized for their ability to create a high quality, piece of equipment. And this is really the outgrowth of that. It's demonstrating that you created the best of whatever this genre is.
So JP, you're giving away a little bit of your age there, citing the Twilight Zone episode. That was a great episode. But there was the movie. Was it Clint Eastwood or Hugh Jackman was the manager?
Jackman, baby.
Yeah.
Hugh Jackman.
Yeah, Hugh Jackman.
Yeah, I remember that one. Yeah,
he was managing like a beaten up old model who had to go against the better model. So, but here's my take on this one. There's something apropos about the first sport or competition we've engaged robots in is in essence modern gladiators, right? We haven't changed as a species since Rome, right? Throw them into the Colosseum, let them fight to the death, right? Up or down. So why would it, and it's fine. It's better than people getting concussed and broken and killed and stuff and all of that. But do we, one of the things about human athletes, whether it's boxing, wrestling, football, baseball, or slalom skiing, is the personalities of these players. Are we willing to just trade listening to a Muhammad Ali or Smoking Joe Frazier or Sugar Ray or, any of think about boxers that you grew up with watching for basically a robot who's just, programmed right, left, right, and scientifically.
Well, you're taking away, and I haven't seen what they're doing with it, but I think there's equal opportunity for the corner to now become that personality, the creators.
Okay, so the manager then becomes this is like wrestling. Okay.
Yeah. It's WWF. WWRF, yes.
Well, exactly. I mean, that's Hugh Jackman's character right there. I mean, and then of course, we get into the whole like Gundam and Macross and all those kind of things. We got Sigourney Weaver, in the loader, and not to mention one of my favorite movies of all time. I just have to mention it here, Pacific Rim.
No, that was a good one too.
You know, that's
And
what
the
we need.
sequel.
We need the entire economy of the entire world devoted to creating giant fighting robots so that we can really focus on something positive that expresses our humanity.
Well, but the next step is making them like Clone War soldiers.
We don't know if weird, creepy, giant monsters are going to come through a rift in the bottom of the Pacific Ocean. It could happen anytime,
Right. And we need
to beat them up.
Moltbot versus son of Moltbot.
We may wind up
likely to be the outgrowth of something like this, right? The empire. We already see the empire taking over in the U.S. So
we might wind up with 2 sports leagues, one robotic and one for
human. That's it. But Stephen, can you say Sigourney Weaver again for me? Because when you said it, you had a certain je ne quoi in your eyes kind of sparkled.
I gotta admit, I'm an Ellen Ripley stan. Yeah, absolutely. You know, Sigourney Weaver, baby.
Yeah, no, it came through loud and clear. Loud and clear.
But Ghostbusters is your favorite then, right?
I like a woman who can kick my butt.
Anyway, but yeah, no, maybe the future is robotic leagues versus human leagues. I mean, like, think about football. How great would it be to have robots who never go off sides, who always run the right route, but are autonomous enough to break it off run their route tree?
It's called streaming Madden. People actually watch this.
Right, but exactly. But will we have a robotic Madden league now?
It's Madden, right? You as the manager now plug in the play and you see what happens.
So do you think people will gamble on this? I assume they will, but is it the same thing to gamble on a robot as it is to place a bet?
It's Asia. Of course they're gambling on it. They're gambling a lot.
I'm not
it's
touching
humanity. We can gamble on anything.
Now,
Come on, they gambled at the Coliseum too. Let's not kid ourselves, right?
True.
And so, no, I don't think that ever changes. I think, to Stephen's point, that is human to gamble on these things. Look, people gamble on which cockroach crawls up the wall faster, right? You think they're not going to gamble on this? The real question is, can you talk a robot into throwing the fight?
I don't know. Or can you just hack into the robot to throw the fight? There you go.
Yeah. Well, it's like those, you exploit the AI cars with like holding up a sign that says, turn left now, you could, take a fall, baby, take a fall.
I love that.
That is out of the Twilight Zone, isn't it? God.
That's an indirect prompt injection attack against the robot, prize fight. I love that.
Hey, it's another attack surface for cybersecurity.
Well, interestingly enough, these things are going to be controlled by some sort of wireless network, and we know they can be disrupted. So if big money starts to get laid down on this, you can imagine that some organized crime organization is going to bring some sort of capability to disrupt the Wi-Fi at the right time and open up the potential for a change in outcome.
To quote Frank Lopez in Scarface, never underestimate the other guy's greed, right? And yes, all of that is possible. But in the meantime, I see nothing wrong with this. I wonder how long before we have it here in the U.S.
All right. So are you buying season tickets to this? Are you going to show up as a regular fan to go?
No, this looks like a made-for-TV sport to me, but I don't know.
The interesting thing is they've done a lot. So a lot of the new shows have been doing rotations on impact of AI. And this seems to be some footage that has been included in many of the reports is the robots fighting. So it's, I think, risen in interest and just, people trying to understand and how does this fit in and with regard to AI. But it has been linked to the uptick in trying to understand AI that you have these robots that box.
But I thought AI was going to be used to cure cancer. What are you talking about, man?
What's more important, Stephen?
That's true. Something you can gamble on is way
they don't
more
have
important.
human skin yet. That's the only thing they haven't put on them.
Well, we need the tax revenue to fund the medicine investments in AI. So we got to have these robotics.
What medicine investments? We don't even. What, you think we're going to worry about germs?
Mm-hmm.
All right, I see where this is going. Let's kill it right now. We're done. Let's go watch some robotic boxing. JP, Stephen, Mike, thanks for joining. Thank you for watching on this great President's Day. Enjoy the rest of your day, whether you're working or at home and taking a day off, enjoy it. We've got some Techstrong, the replay of Techstrong TV immediately following this, so stay tuned for that. And we will be back tomorrow, Tuesday, with more great gang. We hope you can join us. It'll be at noon again, Eastern time. And, we're continuing this experiment for a little bit more. We may go back to early morning. We'd love to hear from you about what you think is best or what you like best. But until then, this is Alan Shimel for Techstrong Gang. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.